course, the senator who has never run anything at all but his mouth.
She's never passed a single bill.
I think there was a time when you did not lie in order to win. I don't know what happened to you.
She didn't just put her name on it. She actually voted for the crazy people's budget, a socialist budget. She voted for it.
Senator, you're repeating yourself again. We've seen this show before. Socialists, crazy, Marxist, silly.
Well, which one
that must be on your list for your talking points.
Little smackdown there for little Marco. Some spirited moments from last night's first and only debate between Marco Rubio and the person working to take a seat from him, Congresswoman Val Demings. In fewer than 3 weeks' time, Florida voters will make that choice. And if any of them are basing their vote on gun safety measures, this exchange from last night will likely be on their minds when they go to vote. A moment to remember.
You've done nothing to help address gun violence and get dangerous weapons out of the hands of dangerous people.
The truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, that Americans have a Second Amendment right to protect themselves. They have, and these killers that are out there, if they're intent on killing as they are, they have found multiple ways to get a hold of weapons and cause mass destruction.
How long will you watch people being gunned down in first grade, fourth grade, high school, college, church, synagogue, a grocery store, a movie theater, a mall, and a nightclub,
Congresswoman,
and do nothing?
Joining us now, three-term Congresswoman and former Orlando Police Chief, Florida Democratic nominee for the Senate, Val Demings. Thank you so much for being here with us.
It's great to be with you, Nicole.
Florida is a tough state. I've worked in Florida politics. Tell me what your plan is for the final 3 weeks.
Well, Nicole, look, we have been traveling the state from the Panhandle down to the Keys, and I am doing what I did as a police chief. I'm not picking and choosing winners and losers based on their ability to pay to play, or just picking and choosing the people that I want to talk with, just people who look like me or think like me or believe in the same things that I do. I'm talking to all voters. I'm talking to voters in North Florida, where I was born and raised, talking to voters in Central Florida, where I currently live, and spending a considerable amount of time in South Florida. What I'm finding out on the campaign trail is voters are tired of hearing one thing, but then watching their politicians do another. I always remind the voters, don't just listen to what Marco Rubio says, like when he met with the Parkland survivors and families and students that were terrorized that day. Watch what Marco Rubio does. And I believe we're taking this fight to the voters in Florida and showing them exactly who Marco Rubio is. And I do believe, Nicole, while it's never easy, at the end of the day, I will have the votes that I need to be Florida's next senator.
Congresswoman, disinformation is a problem in our politics from coast to coast, but I understand that in Florida it's almost on accelerant, that in the Spanish language television, Spanish language radio, and in all of the, I think there are five or six media markets statewide, that disinformation spreads almost faster than it can be beaten down with the truth. You heard Marco Rubio injecting some of his favorite words, smears, lies about you there. How do you combat those claims, which are especially charged in Florida, about socialism and communism?
Well, you know, I had to ask the senator last night, how gullible does he think Florida voters are to believe that a 27-year law enforcement officer, a former police chief who had a reputation of being pretty tough on crime, wants to defund the police, is a socialist, a Marxist, or whatever other buzzwords that he has. But we've spent, as I said, a considerable amount of time in South Florida talking to all communities. We have over 100 surrogates, Latino surrogates on the ground to make sure that the voters are informed. So when they go to the polls, they can be informed voters. But Nicole, you know, it's one thing when people have the wrong information, or voters, and spreading the wrong information. When our leaders start doing that, like Marco Rubio, we have to cut it off, call it what it is, and make sure that he understands that we are not going to accept alternative facts, because alternative facts are lies.
The Republican position is viewed as extremist, too extreme, even for Republican voters in Kansas, for example. He seemed to be deploying the politics of projection and calling you extreme on abortion. How's that issue playing in Florida?
Well, you know, Nicole, as I travel the state, we always talk about the cost of goods and services. We talk about the cost of gas at the pumps. We talk about the lack of affordable housing. But in most conversations before they're over, the voters will bring up a woman's right to choose. The overwhelming majority of people in the state of Florida believe that a woman should have that decision, should be able to make that decision, that it's her right to privacy, her personal choice. They believe that it's not okay for a 10-year-old girl to be raped or the victim of incest and have to carry the seed of her rapist. And Marco Rubio should have made clear, because he said it so many times, that he wants a national ban with no exceptions, that he wants, as the senator, wants to be able to make that very personal, private decision and treat women like second-class citizens. So it is a top issue in Florida, and we're going to make sure, again, that the voters are informed.
Congresswoman, we've been talking this week about how autocratic countries cannot have economies that flourish. Nowhere would the voters understand that message more clearly than in Florida, where many, especially in South Florida, many citizens have fled, or they're first-generation Americans whose parents and grandparents fled countries where they were not free and where their economies did not flourish. Is the economic message able to be tied to the fact that a healthy democracy guarantees a healthy economy?
Nicole, I spend quite a bit of time, too, talking about, of course, we go through the agenda, right? The cost of health care, the cost of goods and services, a woman's right to choose, protecting Social Security and Medicare, public education, the right to vote. But what I try to drive home with the voters is, unless we protect the right to vote, unless we protect our democracy, uphold the rule of law, then the things on our agenda, they will not have an opportunity to flourish. We're only able to enjoy the great benefits of living in the greatest country in the world because of our system of government. And so it is the foundation on which we stand and build a great nation. So yes, as we go through the list, driving home to the voters that all of these things rest on the form of government that we have, and we have to do everything within our power to protect that. And you're right, the voters in South Florida clearly understand that because of the countries in which they come from.